All right, welcome to the Cultivate Church Planting Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Kelly, and I'm here with some two smiling gentlemen ready to record.
Of course. Always watch the video. You'll see more smiles.
Oh, yeah. Go watch the video. You'll see the smiling gentlemen. And so, Daniel, tell us about yourself. What do we got?
Well, I have a last name. It's Williams. It's sort of like Joe Smith. Daniel Williams. I am in Southeast Florida, and I'm a church planter. Lead pastor of Calvary Chapel, the Palm Beaches. We actually moved from Washington State to Southeast Florida to plant Redemption Church in Delray Beach. And it's been recently that within the last few months, another Calvary Chapel asked me and our church to unite and partner. And I am leading both of those congregations into one, Calvary Chapel, the Palm Beaches.
Woo!
So is that enough? I mean,
there's
a lot more.
And I want to tell everyone a little thing about Daniel.
Please do.
And he taught me everything I know about podcasting.
Did I really?
You got me started. You were on the first episode, weren't you?
I was. Yes, I helped.
Go back, look at the archives years ago.
Here's the thing. I like my fruit on other people's trees.
Okay.
So you didn't really need to tell anyone that, but yes, I helped a little bit out. You're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
I love your podcast because we could just like go back and forth.
There's a lot of bantering, and this is the debate that we've had. We had Mike Neglia on a couple times, and he does the Expositors Collective podcast.
Yes.
He doesn't like a lot of banter. He doesn't like just goofing off.
He goes straight to it, man.
Like, let me hear what you got to say. And if that's you, that you're listening to this, just hit that like 30-second button on the podcast player, and you can get ahead a little bit.
Even like intros. No one cares about like intro stuff.
No.
Hey, let me just plug this. I do my own podcast too, as well.
What's it called?
EE Leaders. It's the Leadership Lessons Podcast, sponsored by EE Leaders. It's a ministry to encourage and equip church leaders.
Yep.
So that's sort of like, how I could just teach you, and
it's a good one.
I encouraged you and equipped you. Now you have your own podcast. It's like he grew right before my eyes. I love him.
Dad.
That's awesome.
See, this is what I'm talking about. There's a lot of laughter and bantering in this podcast.
Yep.
It's great.
Yep.
I can't help it. All right, and we have Billy
Almaguer.
Yeah, Almaguer.
Yes.
No one knows.
Almaguer.
Yeah.
It's Almaguer.
Almaguer. That's what I say.
Okay.
My grandparents, I think they're from Monterrey, Mexico. That's where the name is from.
Okay.
They say Almaguer, so I just said that. So that's just what I say. But most people just say Al, and they stop there and they wait for me, and I just
That's what I
usually wait and just kind of wait for them to come up with something.
Yeah.
And then I'll just tell them what it is.
I did all right. I felt like I did all right on that.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Better than me. I'm always like, do you know Billy? Do you know Billy? Do you know
Pastor Billy, right?
Yeah.
Billy A?
Yeah, but no, Almaguer.
Yeah, so Billy Almaguer. Yeah, so originally from Texas, moved out to Florida doing some civil engineering, got saved in grad school, moved out to Florida, got connected in a local church, and just been a part of some church plants, been a part of non-denominational churches in other states, and then was called to plant up in Northeast Florida, St. Augustine, the oldest city for at least that one person needs to hear this. Neil, you know who you are.
That was a debate on, because he was on the podcast in the episode.
Yeah, he's wrong.
He talked trash about you.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's okay. I received that.
Hey, it's just a little friendly, friendly firing.
Yeah.
We like both of you, though. We're not going to choose one.
Yeah, no,
than the
that's
other.
fine.
I don't know what's the oldest city.
I'm going to go with St. Augustine. That's we claim it, and that we're the oldest continuous settlement. So we landed there, parachuted in. So parachuting church planters out there. I love you guys. And it takes a lot of hard work to do that, but stay after it. Yeah. They're going on year number 9 now, and so we've been in one location, now looking at a second. That's kind of crazy. I know for many, they've done many locations, but we've been blessed there, and so it's been
I'm sorry, you have been blessed. I'm just discouraged even thinking about it. In 10 years, I had 5 different locations in the same city.
Wow.
I pretty much planted every 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I had to get my reps in of humility.
I think the Lord knows that I'm pretty lazy, and I didn't want to have to come up with new systems and things like that. And I'm like, hey, how can we just shave a minute off last week? So I look at every Sunday morning as a workout of the day. It's a WOD. Hey, how fast can we get this done? Let's get it done. And so moving around just never really seemed appetizing. But I don't know what leader had said it, but they said, until the pain of where you're at is greater than the pain of where you're going, you won't change. So I think we're kind of there.
Yeah.
And so now we move on. We go to different places.
Yeah, we were just talking before the show, Billy, you're moving to a school.
Yeah.
You're in a movie theater now.
Yep, movie theater.
Moving to a school and bigger venue, bigger opportunity for growth.
Yeah,
And
yeah, we're
Church is
excited.
doing great.
Yep.
I watch you guys on Instagram. Go check out their Instagram page. And
Awaken City Church.
Yeah, Awaken
Awaken
City
City
Church.
Church.
Yep. We're
I like
Calvary
that.
Chapel, and so we went with Awaken City. It seemed a little
Nice.
bit easier than Calvary Chapel, St. Augustine. There was a lot of words here,
Yeah.
a lot of letters, and I figured this was just easier.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty excited.
Today we want to talk about. Okay, so this is where you put the timestamp for those who are tired of the banter and all that. Although I just
you
want to
sure? 'Cause
say
this is pretty
there's going to be
solid.
more banter.
Oh, for sure.
More.
At least
lot
a little.
more. But
Un
those things
poquito.
that Billy said before I just said that timestamp thing were really good things. So you don't want to skip that.
No.
Anyway, today we're going to talk about staying connected as churches and more specifically as church planters, new churches. Because if there's one thing that you learn early on as a church planter, it's that you need to be in fellowship with other, not only other believers, but other churches and other pastors, preferably in your area. Although what we're going to talk about in a little bit is something that Billy, you and Jeff and Daniel, Jeff Geip, who's been on the show before, have done, and that's through Zoom. You've used the technology to really build a fellowship within Calvary Chapel and some of the other churches in the network, and also a new vision that you have, Daniel, that we'll talk about in a second, of how to develop those relationships. So let's get it started. So this is the episode about building those networks and building those connections and how important it is. So first of all, Daniel, to you, how important is it?
So, oh man, we were almost so serious.
It was good for a second.
I know
It
it was like and then
professional.
we made eye contact.
Man.
Okay, so here's how important relationships have been for me.
All right.
When I moved from outside of Olympia, Washington to Southeast Florida, Delray Beach, I read a statistic from Barna that said if you are connected with other local churches in your area, the statistic goes you will stay in that community for exponential amount more time, 10 plus years, just if you have other relationships. So I took that very serious, and I literally tithed my time to build relationships with people, meaning 10% of my time would go, I'm going to have a coffee, a lunch. I was bivocational. It was super hard. But out of that group of guys that we've prayed with, been a part of, as I've had downs, they've lifted me up. Now we do things corporately. It's gone relationally, just from pastors to churches, to partnership, to now we're doing 21 days prayer and fasting. This last year, we had a conversation, and we actually planted and helped plant churches. So like it's built from relationships of being surrounded by other brothers like-minded through prayer, building relationship, to churches, to now being like, hey, we're doing and serving ministry and expanding the kingdom. Together.
These are guys that aren't just within Calvary Chapel. You've got guys within several different denominations that are like-minded with the vision that you guys all have.
2 Acts 29 churches, 2 Pentecostals, 2 Calvary Chapels, myself, and then another guy that did a residency. We planted him. He's in that group, and then another non-denominational church.
So when you get together, do the Pentecostals pray and then the Calvary guys do the Bible study?
Yeah. It differs. But yeah, it's pretty amazing to not only be outside of our own tribe and movement, but because we're all in the same area and region and being centered around mission.
Yeah.
We're able with the secondary issues to just be like, okay, well, that's the big issue is Jesus, the gospel, and how do we make disciples in our area, because we're all called here together.
And would you say, like, the connection that you have, would you say that you get along well with these guys? Like, these are your like brothers in arms kind of thing? Are they personality wise, do you click well with them, or is it just random guys that you reached out to? Like, how did this all come to pass?
I think that when you pray together, it bonds your heart. And so we've been praying and having our hearts bond, and then just through practice and reps and being together, you have shared experiences, and there's trust, and so you're able to share your heart and be vulnerable, and then all of a sudden, there's this mutual friendship, you know? And so, I mean, some of my closest friends are the local pastors in my area.
Wow, that's great. A lot of times you think of local pastors and churches, like when I was getting advice in church planting years ago, this old school minister guy, he said to me, you know, if you're going into a town and planting the church, because I was asking him, should I talk to other churches in the area, see what's going on, what God's doing in the area? He's like, no, you don't need to do that. You need to go in and do your own thing and don't worry about them, and just, you know, kind of keep your head down and build your church kind of attitude.
Yeah.
And I thought about that, and this was a long time ago. I didn't know what I was really doing. I pretend like I know what I'm doing a lot of time, but It's not that way at all. Like because what you find a lot of times in these areas is you'll get kind of territorial churches.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, who's this guy parachuting in, meeting in a movie theater, 2 blocks away or whatever. Like, but then you find, like what you're saying, Daniel, is, and I know some of the guys you're talking about because I met them when we first went down and we hung out. You guys you have different ministries, especially when it's outside of your own particular tribe. Like if you're a Calvary Chapel and you go and plant a Calvary Chapel like 2 doors down, that's kind of maybe a little bit awkward.
Yeah.
But even then, I'm like,
but even then,
they're
had
different.
A church planting residency, had this guy that's a part of our group and planted him 3 miles away. Because I was like, I love him and I want him closer. And if he's closer to me, then we get to do this thing together. So let's
territorialism. That's my word.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
Yeah, and I think it comes really to what I'm reminded of is this. It's one word I think that impacted me when it came to church planting, and it was the word competition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for so many church planners, it's like, hey, I'm going to bring the latest and greatest. And I can't remember where it was, but little known fact is when I was going through that church planting season of equipping myself, I went down the road to becoming an ARC church as well.
Mm-hmm.
And through that association, there was a teaching that someone had done. And basically it kind of came across this very simple idea that if I'm not building community with other ministry leaders, then they're competition. I'm going to see them as competition. And I think for me, that really kind of just started the thinking. And so really a year before I even moved into the St. Augustine, again, the oldest city.
Neil.
Neil, the oldest city. So before I moved here, I reached out to every pastor that I could find on a website or whatever. Very few answered my call, but the ones that did, we're connected today like brothers because I went in there knowing that I wasn't the latest and greatest. I was going to be standing on the shoulders of many men and women who had gone before me. And we were just the latest thing that God was doing, but there was going to be other things happening after us as well. And I think that really set the tone for us when we started thinking about building community, whether that was in person, online, or however. But that's, to me, the importance of community is that it really kind of helped me center myself because competition isn't good for our hearts as leaders. And if we don't go in there with that mindset, it's easy for us to think, oh, I've got this, that, and the other. I've got the shiny trailer. I've got all these things. It's like, God doesn't owe you a congregation. He doesn't owe you any form of success. We really just need to be obedient. And I think addressing that early on for me was very beneficial because it built some really long-lasting relationships.
Yeah.
And knowing you, Billy, you're a humble guy and you're a likable person. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that when you came in, you're not coming in with an attitude like, because some of us church planters are like,
I'm sure I had an attitude.
We've got a little, we're like, we're going to do it better than you kind of attitude. Yeah. You never say that, you never admit that, but that's kind of the attitude you have. But I know that about you. You didn't have that. I'm sure that was something that's going to, you come in humbly and say, hey, I'm wanting to work with you and build on what you've already done. That speaks a lot. Yeah,
my first summer as a team, we moved there. We were there for about 4 or 5 months before we even started doing any sort of interest meeting or whatever. And we were serving at a local church, Pastor Brian at Reverb. The church that we were at a couple of weeks back for a large scale gathering. But anyway, I went there. I played on their band. He had questions, and I really helped their team during their building campaign. And so I was part of that as well. So I wasn't a staff member, but I saw the greater kingdom impact. And, I remember we always joked. I said, hey, I'll go to your church, but I promise I won't steal your people. He said, take whoever you want, but just, take these or these first or whatever. But it was just really cool and such a great place to be because even now, we're on a board together now for what we call the collective in our area where churches of all kinds of different, backgrounds come together. We're all centered on Christ. That's the main focus. But we've come together and lock arms on community because it's important. We need each other. As much as we don't think we do, we do.
Yeah.
And I think for me too, like the community that was built, these builders, we call them, the group of guys that I'm in fellowship with, we all had what was in common of church planting mission 10 years and under, right? And so my really good friends, like there were other 2 church planters in different cities, but we had that in common. I did the same thing. Hey, knocked on the doors, the more established churches. Some of them got back to me. Some of them didn't, right? The ones that did, I pursued, but the ones that didn't, it's okay. No big deal.
Mm-hmm. And not everybody's going to want to connect like that.
And it's funny because we want to be very diverse and all this different stuff. But the reality is, if you're dealing with a certain problem, if you're a parent of young kids, you're probably going to navigate and gravitate towards parents of young kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So other church planners, other struggles, whether it be the size-wise, whether it be the length of time, you naturally have this common interest. And so finding that common interest, hopefully as believers, our common interest is the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
If you're church planting, you want the common interest to be on mission.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to go and find that mission, and having that common interest of the gospel partnership is actually going to facilitate and grow that community that you desire and you need in your life and in the church plant.
Amen. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. How are we going to do this? What practical advice would you give to, let's say, a young church planter, or even someone that's got a church that's going, but they feel alone? A lot of the guys out there are alone. They're in it. They've maybe been taught, like I did early on, don't connect with the other churches, that kind of thing. What's the practical advice, practical steps you can give to these guys to be able to develop those kind of network connections and relationships?
Yeah. I'll start. We'll start with you, Billy.
Yeah. I mean, I go back to when I was learning to drive, and our instructor, our very first day, didn't take us and show us a car. He took us and showed us like wrecked cars. Ooh. And he went and showed us like what the inverse of a healthy, a method of driving look like. And so when you think of church planting, I think sometimes we have to look, and I think what was beneficial for me is to see, well, what's not healthy? What's a picture of what does non-community look like? And I think for me, one of the couple of things that really impacted me, and what I would say to perhaps some church planners or young churches, so to speak, is that if you don't have community and really voices that champion you and what God is doing through you, then it's easy for success to begin to sway our vision of who we are and what we are. Mm-hmm. Instead of what God's called us to.
Yeah,
and success can be very detrimental to any church plant. Hey, look at all these people, look at this. And then it suddenly becomes, look what I've done. Yep. If you don't have those voices, and while, yes, I think we need to have leadership in our churches that kind of provide that structure, but even friends outside who are in ministry in our community to give us some good ground truth of what's happening. For instance, like as we're looking at potentially going to a school, I'm already identifying the churches because I'm friends with some of them that might be around that area. And so once, I'm going to go have a conversation with them, let them know like, hey, just, we're moving here. God has opened these doors, but this is in no way, obviously, competition.
Yeah.
God is doing a work here. He's doing a work there. And I just want you to hear it from me. I think those things are critical.
That's good.
And it's
good. Especially
Mm-hmm.
coming from you, Billy, like I said, it's going to have a lot of weight. It's going to let them know. Mm-hmm. And some guys are just going to, no matter how you present it, they're not going to like it.
Right.
Just to be honest. But I think that goes a long way in showing it's not about us, not about this. It's about the bigger picture of the kingdom.
Yeah. So I go back to the inverse real quick, is that if we don't do that, then when I do see that success and when I hit the 200 mark or the 300 mark or the whatever that marker is, the tendency is to start patting yourself on the back. But when you start looking through scripture, you look at even example of Moses and all that he accomplished, all that he had was just obedience to God.
Yeah.
And a lot of baggage. And so all we have as church planners is that we need to have that obedience to God each and every day, no matter what the ministry is doing, how successful or unsuccessful, that's our call. And so community, I think, helps us stay rooted. And I think just, speaking of diversity of community, from very charismatic to the non-denominational to the different denominations that we have, even in the collective, just in our local expression in St. Augustine in St. Johns County. You got people that like to pray a lot. You got people that everything is always up and to the right. Then you got people a little bit more in the center, but it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see how God uses all those voices to minister to all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how are we going to do it, Daniel?
I think one thing that you need to focus on, if you're talking about community, communion, koinonia, fellowship, it's relational.
Oh, yeah.
So it's probably a terrible example, but most pastors, or a lot of them, could be jerks.
Ooh.
In the practical sense, and not in a bad way.
Not us, though, right?
No. Well, yeah, all the time. If you're so busy, right? If you're so busy, you have to learn that interruptions are from the Lord. So you're so busy, you're scheduling, you're busy, you're doing things of God. You're sort of a jerk in the sense of like just making time for people, right? Why would I make time for you? And so I think if you're trying to build a relationship, one nitty gritty thing that you can do is be a blessing to those people that are already established and super busy.
Huh.
So, for
That's
example,
interesting. Yeah.
they're not jerks on purpose. They're literally trying to worship their Lord and Savior who shed his blood for them and has a calendar of things that they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
So-
you're not part of it.
No.
It's already full.
Well, think about what Billy just said. He built a relationship and said, yeah, I know you're doing this great thing like building a building. Let me help with that campaign. Let me play the drums with you. Let me buy you lunch.
No one's turning that down.
No, let me serve you.
Yep.
And I think that what ends up happening is because it's our church plant, we think about us and our community. In a mutual relationship, you should be giving too. We love because Christ first loved us. What would happen if we were kind to other people? They would be probably kind to us. There's no one that will ever tell you, no, I've had too much encouragement for today. Leave me alone. But what if you proactively sent a text every week to that pastor? I'm praying for your message today. Hey, I just rolled by your church. I just thought about you guys and I'm serving you.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Can I buy you lunch? Can I just take, you know what? Forget me. Here's a $50 gift card. I was praying for you. Take your wife out.
Dang.
Is there anything? Think about, would you want to be around a friend like that?
$50, that's like 2 Big Macs at McDonald's. You got to go 100, man.
Well, we are talking about a church plant, okay?
And by the way, just for the record, I have a few more openings for those sort of generous
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah,
like
that's
Daniel,
right.
Hit me
My
up.
email address
Yeah.
for any
See,
electronic.
people think that I'm like I'm super connected to everyone. No, I just try to be kind to everyone.
Yeah.
Like I want to be kind to people.
But you're naturally, or I guess also supernaturally, a gifted person when it comes to building relationships. Like a lot of guys are like, you're not introverted, are you?
No, I'm totally an extrovert.
Yeah.
And I would say that is like, if I don't know if it's a gift, but connectivity, people, I'm very connected to a lot of people. So even we're right now at a Calvary Global Network conference, and one goal that I've had is trying to introduce the people that I know to other awesome people that they may not know.
Yeah.
So even like,
I
hey,
like
Brian,
that.
we're here. Let's do Billy. Because what he's
Yeah.
doing in St. Augustine, he's mentioned just, the collective. I was just up there with the director of Church United from South Florida, what we're doing in South Florida and all the connectivity and gathering pastors. Billy and his team, St. Augustine, hundreds of people there, pastors, it's amazing.
Yeah.
He's just too humble. He won't say it. So.
No, I know he is, and I know he's super gifted too. Because and let's talk about this for a minute. You guys came up with an idea. I don't know whose idea. Probably Billy's. Because
Of course.
no offense.
All I do is, you know how I got connected more with Billy? I just said, hey, Billy, how can I help?
But they had, even within Calvary Chapel and Calvary Global Network, we're trying, across the board, Calvary Chapel, CCA, CGN, there's always the emphasis on we need to be connecting better. We need to get these solo churches out there that are out on their own, connected at least within their own tribe and their own group,
Mm-hmm.
So you guys had a great idea, like, of course, we can try to do it locally, regionally, kind of, let's drive an hour and all meet up at wherever. But you used Zoom, you created a meeting place, and it was crafted in such a way where it was not just, hey, everybody jump on Zoom and we'll all hang out. Like you really put some thought into it. You sent out. So tell us, just give us a summary of what you do for those meetings that I've attended twice.
You attended the first
Very
quarter.
impactful.
I just
Because
had
you're
to give
so
a disclaimer.
busy. You're so busy.
I'm so busy. I don't have time for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's fine. It's fine, jerk.
I think, again, one of the barriers for people to be in like a relationship with other people, like, person in front of person, is, I don't have time. There's no benefit. We kind of start checking off all the boxes. And so we started thinking, how can we remove some of those barriers? And I think the simple thing came down to this, is that everyone has to have lunch. Everyone eats lunch. If you don't, you should.
Yeah.
And I would suggest barbecue for lunch, but that's my personal favorite.
One of the best barbecue places I ever had in my life was in St. Augustine.
Are you serious?
Five
one
minutes
of the
away from his
top
church.
10 food trucks in Florida. My man Michael, County Road Provisions.
Ooh.
If you're ever in St. Augustine, Wednesdays.
Yeah, it's only one day a week.
it's-
He's like, dude, we need to be there at like 10:30, 10 o'clock. I'm like, what are you talking
The
about?
meat whisperer. He is like the burnt offering. He's got it.
Wow.
Anyway, so we said, so lunch is important. Obviously, you can see that. And I think for us, most people, before they'll commit to something, they want to know, what am I going to get out of it? It's selfish. We're all like that, right? Before I'm going to commit an hour or two to something, what am I going to get out of it? And so we decided to kind of start this initial ring, and it goes a lot deeper, at least in our Brian's right now. But how can we equip people? And so thematically, we built out semesters on, for instance, summer could be about like, what does rest look like for a church planter or a church leader in summer? what does the fall relaunch look like? And we started just bringing some very practical things, all aimed at giving people really some tangible things that they can use as a leader, things that they can not only use for themselves in their ministry position, but also bring back to their staff. And we try to craft that with video, great Q&A session, but then wrapping it up in an hour, because we know that it can get very long-winded, but really just trying to deliver some content like that, because that's the first step for many people. And then with the idea that if other things spawn out of that, whether, there's people that want to start something regionally and take some of the content we've created or create their own, great, go for it. Because the idea is that we want to keep pastors in the game, and really think about the biggest advancements that the enemy has made is he's isolated pastors. And if we can just help pastors get over that barrier of being alone, being isolated, being in community, even if it's just giving them something for free that's going to help them tangibly with their family and or ministry, then to me, that's a win, that's a blessing. And so we use that platform to kind of do that, at least start something.
It's really cool. And are you still doing the pre-recorded video? So this is it's really a neat idea because
you went to it, so you tell us.
I did, That's why I was so impressed. That's why, man, I just wish I had more time in the day, because it was. Yeah. I'd be there every time.
So we ended up doing, and sometimes in these
Why you make me feel bad?
Well, you should. You have been a good friend. It's okay. It's all right.
And I think, when you come together online, especially, it's hard. It can be hard sometimes to follow a teaching. And so we just felt like, let's just do a concise 10 to 15 minute or 20 minute for Daniel sometimes video.
That's my range, the 20-minute leadership lesson.
Which is great stuff. So then it's all packaged. But the beauty is that we could play that and then give people that link, and they could use it for whatever they want.
For those who are listening, what happens, everybody log into the Zoom, and you introduce the session. The notes are sent out in advance of what you're going to talk about, what each week looks like. And then you have a pre-recorded video. And then after the video, there's a directed question and answer discussion. How's everybody doing? That sort of thing. And even breakout rooms within the Zoom platform.
And I think what it does is it helps, especially for someone who's ever been a part of something like this. When we lead with, here's the expectation, there's not this fear that I'm going to jump on a Zoom call, there's going to be the virtual chair in the middle, and I'm now going to have to tell everyone I cussed out my dog or whatever it is. And it's like, that's not what it's about. We really want to equip people, and we want to use that equipping to really generate conversation. Naturally, there will be some connections that you make in there, which is why it's great coming to conferences like this. Or being together with friends that you've been online with, and now you've kind of got some sort of community built. But that's the idea, and I think many people, we want to give stuff away to help people stay in ministry as long as possible.
Nice.
The idea of those 20-minute leadership lessons and bringing out value, like, okay, if my time is so tight, give me something to help. So the reason why we pre-record it is then we can upload it, and you can literally take those questions and those notes, teach it yourself, or play the video that we just gave you to your team for a staff meeting. Well, I had my dad one time do a 20-minute lesson on we were talking about the semester was on longevity in ministry. How do we last? Ooh. So I said, okay, rather than us, let's just get this guy. He's Calvary Chapel pastor for 41 years. And I just got in the living room. Just talk to me for 20 minutes about and that was like the best received type of stuff. Then we also foster a community, because then we have a group chat. So on Sunday mornings, hey, I'm praying for you. I'm praying for this. Oh, what resource? And just building those tools. So when you don't, even if you can't make that meeting that month, you can go back and listen. You can now have people in your life. Then it's spawned on to, now I'm following you on Instagram. Now I'm speaking. Now there's relationships.
You're building those relationships.
Yeah. And
that's what it's about.
Creating a pathway and a system to actually say, hey, this is worth your time. Because when a crisis comes and you're not in community, that's where it's really scary and hard.
Yeah, you don't know that you need it until the time comes when you need it. And you need those relationships. Good stuff. Can anybody jump on the Zoom, or is there a link, or should we try to duplicate this and more? What are your plans for the future? You've got some ideas coming up.
So
Daniel,
here's my idea. What we want to do is we want to do this sort of, instead of a semester, almost like a year program. So 10 months, maybe charge a little bit so people have skin in the game.
Ooh.
Okay. So you'll not only get content, you'll get more of fellowship, but we're going to take those funds, like a monthly fee of $100 a month, take that money, and then actually have an in-person gathering for a few days.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So you're going to use the funds that people are buying in to create a in-person gathering.
Yeah. So the idea is, if you sign up for the next year, you'll know for this 10 months, you're going to get, boom, this is going to be the theme. After one Zoom meeting, there'll be a in-person thing, build the community right away. We'll be able to fly a couple of guys into getting like a big Airbnb, have cohorts from 8 to 10 people, or maybe a dozen people, and just foster and continue to build that relationship.
So kind of take it to the next level.
Yeah. What's funny is because we started this because we're both church planners and pastoring in Florida, and the need was so great that now we got people from Brazil and Madrid and Canada, and like it's just.
I remember
grown.
that because it started at just as a Florida.
Yeah,
thing.
we're just like let's just foster community and just do like
that's when I was in. But then all the other people came in.
It intimidated you, huh?
It did. Yeah,
it became a global ministry real quick.
Yeah, it did.
But yeah, that's sort of the idea is, and you're seeing that now. I find that as I've pastored longer, the thing that I value more in conferences, although I do value the Bible study and the content and the training, it's the round table, it's the discussion and relationship. Yeah. And I think that there are so many guys that maybe don't think they can afford it, but if we can create a system to say, it's almost like hey, buy in, and then that way you'll be able to come to this thing. Mm-hmm. It's a very reasonable thing to say, if I want to build a relation, here's my pathway. And we typically do it for lead pastors, church planners, those groups, and it's been a great joy. It's been awesome. So
yeah. And I think, for the end user, which was me, I've been in plenty of these, by the way, so it's not like we're creating something that I haven't done myself and I actually paid into. I did that because it was an investment in me.
Yep.
And, you think back to sports analogies and things like that. You don't always train. There's stress and release periods. And I think every pastor, if you don't have a rhythm of stress and release in your life where you are stressing, doing the work of the ministry, but also being filled up in some way, this is a great way to do this if you don't have a mechanism or a cohort or something available for you. This is a great way to do it. It's pretty low cost, but it's also pretty impactful because you get a lot of content for it. But the in-person gathering is really where the money is and where the gold happens and magic happens. Mm-hmm. That's the secret sauce, because that's where you build relationships with people who perhaps are in the same season of ministry with you, same seasons of life. And, the ministry that happens there goes far beyond what you do in the coaching calls and things like that.
Well, and I think when we talk about community, I've been experienced of that. Like those group of guys that are with me now in South Florida, we started all like, so now there's a whole nother group that are starting churches. And I've literally had them over to my house and invited them all so they can connect with one another. And I just love that. I think that there are so many people starting churches or in the same season that if we can connect them together and just facilitate that and just release them, that's going to change trajectory of hundreds of thousands of people, because they'll have healthy pastors that will last longer.
All right, let's take one piece of advice that you guys could give for those who want to get in community. They don't think it's that important, maybe, or maybe they do. How important is it? How are they going to do it? Just a quick little piece of advice that you'd give to them.
What do you got?
Well, my advice would simply be, you got to do it. It's an investment in yourself, your family, and your ministry. Not doing it, again, I look at the inverse. When you don't invest in yourself and you don't protect yourself from what, the future success of ministry can bring in your life, and really get some ground truthing and get some community around you, you're just setting yourself up for failure. And, we all learn lessons, and it's better to learn those lessons in community than to be on the cause and effect side of it, where you've gone too hard, you've neglected your family, you've neglected areas of ministry, and now you've got too many plates that are spinning. And so I always tell people, it's not that it's insurance, but in a way, learning from other people is gold, especially other pastors who love the Lord, and they love you enough to tell you truth about things maybe you don't want to hear about. And so
do you think that's one of the reasons why people don't get connected in these kind of groups? Is because they're afraid of that kind of, intrusion into their ministry and who they are? I use the word intrusion because that's kind of what.
Yeah, but I would also argue, while yes, that could be a barrier, but it's like being a lead pastor. Does that somehow put you in a position to where you're not, the focus of a group of critics? No.
Yeah.
Why not prepare your heart for that? Just be certain of the Lord's
Get someone
call.
that actually cares about you.
Yeah.
That you can develop a relationship with.
Absolutely.
That can help you with that. That's a good point, because we got these pastors that are out there goofing around, falling, doing all kinds of crazies.
Yeah. Well, and I would say I'm a product of community. No one has gotten to the place that they're at without community. Their parents, their siblings, their friends, their peers, ministry leaders, their partnership, their dream team. We're all a product because we're made in the image of God, and our God is a triune God. So when we actually walk in his ways and the paths that he's created,
That's community.
It's actually good for our soul. I was thinking about this in just a silly way, but last week I celebrated my 21-year anniversary. So I've been longer alive with my wife than without my wife.
Dang.
And this is not like, you're looking at the inverse. I'm like, why would I ever do anything without my wife? I love her so much. This is just it's nature to me.
Bro, you got to get this episode and play that part for her.
You ruined it. That was going to be the brownie point. I was going to text. I feel bad ditching her right now at the conference. No, but just think about that. When you do something so much and it becomes a part of you, it actually is a way of life, and you can thrive in it. And what I've seen is ministry leaders, we tell people to get in community. We do that. I'm in a cohort right now with leaders all over the world. I'm the only one in the U.S. in my cohort. I'm doing the same thing. I went over to Wales to spend time with them. Spend my own time, investment, getting my master's, doing stuff, because it has brought so much fruit and joy in my life. Why would I go anywhere in life and look around and there's no one beside me? I want to be able to live in community and have people that have my back and that I can serve and bless them. And so, I think the one thing or the one piece of advice or something that I would tell people is you have to understand God's ways applies for you as well. If you're
not just teaching other people.
No, you're a church planner. You want them to what? Be connected to God and community. Yep. And guess what? If you're a church planner, you need to be abiding in Christ yourself and connected to community. And part of the obstacles that we have as pastors is we have to actually share and be transparent to people that could be trustworthy and could be confidential. Like when you're sharing with another pastor, it's pastoral confidentiality.
That's right.
So when you are a church planner,
unless you tell me you're going to murder someone, then I have a responsibility.
Yeah. If you're going to hurt yourself or someone else, then I gotta, So just those things. If you understand the role, and even seeing someone go in front of you, why would you not, in humility, put yourself in a position to have that relationship? And so, a system, a cohort, a community, a conversation, talking about these things, I would just say, humble yourself. And guess what? God pours out his grace upon those that are humble, but he opposes the proud. You want to do it by yourself, bro, go ahead and do it.
God. Billy, let's get a last word from you, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, again, I think just, there's a lot of sayings I know that people have quoted over the years, but one of the ones that kind of sticks out in my brain, at least, is if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to get there in a healthy way, go with others. I don't know who said it, but I know our executive pastor says that a lot, Pastor Jeff, and I don't know where he got it from, but I was like, there's a lot of truth to that. And to the point about community is that when you look at statistics from 2010, 2020, and even it's now from Barna even, and several others, you just see the downward trend of pastors trying to figure out, am I still called? Getting disqualified from the ministry and all that. And those same things, if you apply them to our congregation, when someone came to you and said, hey, I'm struggling with my finances, or I'm struggling with whatever these addictions are, we would point them to being in community with others. And so again, pastors are not immune from community. I think we need to lead the charge and be an example. Be a picture of the destination. That's what Crawford Lewis would always tell us. Be a picture of that destination so that people are looking at you. I can't expect people to be in groups if I'm not in one myself. And so at my church, they know that I'm part of the collective and I'm part of different cohorts. Why? Because that's fuel for me. That helps me. That's what I need, and I need to hear that. And so I would say for someone who's apprehensive or hasn't decided to take that first step, I would encourage you to take that step. It's going to be a decision, a wise decision, especially for the future. Your future self will thank you for that decision now.
Yeah. Awesome. Good stuff. Love you guys. Thanks so much for being on the episode. I know it's going to be a blessing. We're going to look forward to that project that you're working on.
Yeah. It's going to drop probably through eeleaders.com. You can email me, Daniel@eeleaders.com, and reach out to us if you're part of the Calvary Global Network. We're doing a lot of back-end, behind the scenes through connect groups and all that different stuff. But do we have a link for any of our cohorts that we talked about today?
There is a link, but it's rather long and ambiguous.
I can get the link and put it in the show notes.
Yeah. So I got a link.
Send it to me. You know what? With the workshop we're doing tomorrow, go to eeleaders.com / CGN, and you'll see actually all
Okay.
these videos, a whole bunch of free content, and a link
Yeah.
to get into the group.
And if you're listening to the audio of this, and not watching the video, you'll be able to see Daniel Williams' face. So
Is that
that's an added bonus. Just throw that in the end.
Almost as nice as the voice. No?
Yeah. All right. God bless you guys. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening. The Cultivate Church Planting Podcast is part of CGN Media, a podcast network that points to Christ. Check out cgnmedia.org for more great shows and ways to support the ministry.